Caroline from Caroline Rose Fiber Arts. I am back from the New England Sheep and Wool in Springfield, and I literally just walked in the door, set up the podcast, and am recording. And I'm doing that because I am so excited to work with this fiber, but I can't do it until I show it to you guys first. So I wanted to get it done as soon as possible. So on today's special podcast, I'm going to be sharing the stuff I got at New England in Springfield, Massachusetts, and then also the Rhinebeck sheep and wool, which is the New York, and the Vermont sheep and wool, which is in late September. So these are all the fall festivals, and I'll do another recap in the spring after the spring festivals, which are Massachusetts, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. There's a Rhode Island in there as well, but I've never been to that one, but maybe this time I'll be able to make it. But anyways, we'll get right into FiberStash. This year with my fiber fairs, I did not spend as much as I normally do, and I didn't get as much fiber. And it's interesting, I didn't see a whole lot of color variation at both the Vermont and the New York. I wasn't really inspired by a lot of the colorways in their roving and their bats. New England that I went to today was a real surprise, and I'll share some of that stuff that I got. So, do we want to go chronological? Let's go chronological. So the first was the Vermont sheep and wool, which I went with my husband David. This is our second year going. It is way, way, way up there. It was about a 2 hours and 45-minute drive north from where we are in northern Massachusetts. So we're about like 20 minutes from the New Hampshire border. So it was sort of up through New Hampshire and over. And it's just south of Burlington, Vermont, which is, I think that's where it's located. It's in Tunbridge, Vermont. I think that's how you say it. And it's this adorable little agricultural fairgrounds tucked into these hilly mountains, and there's this really picturesque church on the side, and it's a really stunning venue. So my husband David does go to these things with me, but he tends to go to the ones that have picturesque locations. So Vermont was definitely on his list that he wanted to attend. Vermont is much smaller than a lot of the other ones, but I kind of liked it that way. There's this great maple cream place that David gets. It's like a maple syrup flavored soft serve ice cream. One of the treats, and it's family run there. And a lot of nice local farmers. Most are going to be from the Vermont area, which is nice because some of these regional fairs aren't necessarily just Massachusetts farmers or just Vermont farmers, but this one is more like that. This was the first, and this is FiberStash Dyeworks, and they are out of Vermont, like I mentioned. And so I've spun with their stuff before, and actually what I did, because they didn't have the same color in 8 ounces worth. So I spin almost every project that I do is going to be in 8 ounces. And that's because that allows for 2 4-ounce skeins. And that's how I tend to sell. And the reason for that is because 8 ounces is good for a shawl. It's good for definitely a baby sweater, cowl, that kind of stuff. So most of your projects, until you get to like sort of sweater Afghan mode, and most people are not going to be making an entire sweater out of hand spun unless it's their own hand spun. So I tend to stick at 8 ounces for that reason, sort of shawl size and smaller. I do custom orders that are larger, but honestly, when 4 ounces spinning takes you about 4 or 5 hours of time. That's 10 hours that you've invested in one single color, so you sort of get a little bored of the color after a while. So anyways, that's a little bit of background. So almost all of these projects, actually I think all of them, are going to be 8 ounces. So just keep that in mind. It would create 2 skeins. So I have bought from them in the past, FiberStash, and it was a colorway that I really loved, but they didn't have it in the same fiber type for 2. So these are 4 ounce bundles each. And what I did is I blended a BFL and like a merino and silk, which I think is almost what this guy is. So I did the blending in the ply process. So I spun singles of each and then plied them together, and it came out beautiful. I loved the results. It gave a lot of loft from the BFL, but then that soft shimmer made it really supple to the silk and even some of the merino. So it was just really a great combination. So when I saw this, which is merino roving, 100%, and this, which is merino and tencel, which is a silk variation, I knew that I wanted to repeat that again. And spinning this stuff was such a dream. So I love corals and purples, and it was just screaming my name. So this is one project that I got at the Vermont Sheep and Wool. And I also got from Marshmallow Farm, and I will look up exactly where they are, if they are a Vermont vendor or not. They were at Rhinebeck, and then they were also at Today's at New England, but I picked this stuff up when they were in Vermont. So I have lots of their stuff. They do Cormo, and then also Jacob roving, and maybe one other breed of sheep, but they only do natural, but they do it really, really well. Sometimes when you have natural roving, you know, it's okay, but it doesn't feel inspired, I guess, if you want to call it that. This stuff it's great. And I just think their marketing is really great. They call it Fluff, from Marshmallow Farm. Get it? And that's really what it feels like, you guys. So this is Jacob roving, which, I gotta be honest, I don't have a lot, of fond memories with Jacob roving. It's usually processed really sort of scratchy and almost kind of pilly-like. And then you don't really get a lot of the rich colors from Jacobs because the Jacob sheep are sort of patchy color, so they tend to be blended in the carding process, and then it sort of gets washed out. But this, I don't know if you can tell, but it is just like a lovely soft brown with a lot of tones to it, which speaks to what was the patchy wool. So this stuff I'm really excited about. And he was telling me that this is woolen processed. So the fibers, I don't know if you can tell, but the fibers sort of have this halo to them, and that's because the fibers are being crisscrossed, and it's going to make this a much bouncier wool when it's spun up. So very, very excited, because most of your processed rovings are not going to be processed worsted or processed woolen. They're processed worsted, which makes for a smoother yarn, which is great, but you don't really get that squish that that a lot of people love, that I love. So I got that, and then the last thing I picked up was from Fitzwilliam Farms, and this is actually in New Hampshire. And what I kind of loved about this is another natural. 8 ounces of this guy. But it was just a beautiful blended fleece. So it is Teeswater, BFL, and then Wensleydale and Corriedale. I believe that's what it is. And it's just like, oh my God. It's just like, I don't know how to describe it, you guys. Like cobweb, sort of thin and lovely, and the fiber staple just like goes on for days, you guys. And it's going to be really, really nice to spin. This can definitely be spun up in a lace weight, which is, I think, what this is going to end up as. And it's just like, oh, it's just beautiful. It's just really lovely. And what I loved about it, and I love about sourcing from local farms, or small family farms at the very least, is they gave you the names of the sheep that went into this fleece. So this was a blend of a Teeswater BFL cross, who the sheep's name was Beatrice, and then a Wensleydale and Corriedale cross, which his name was Pippa. So like, so cute. I'm really excited to spin Beatrice and Pippa. And I might dye it, but I don't know. I think I'll spin it first and sort of see, and then might do some dyeing on top of it. I'm not sure. Wait and find out. So that was all that I bought at Vermont. And you wouldn't know this because these podcasts are so new, but I usually take home much larger hauls from these fiber festivals. I only source my fiber from these festivals. I don't really buy fiber throughout the year otherwise. Maybe I'll source from like a handful of online vendors, maybe from small sort of indie dyers, but really I don't. So this fiber has to last me really, really long time. And so this will have to last me until, and then what I have still, until next April, which is when the next fiber festivals start up again. So, however, I think I'll be okay. I didn't do a lot of spinning this summer because, as I was saying, I was working on other projects for that Makers Festival, so I wasn't doing a lot of spinning. So all that stuff I got in the spring is still here, ready to be spun. And I had a whole lot of back stash inventory to bring to the Makers Festival. I had more than enough yarn to stock a booth from not selling for 2 years. So I didn't really do a whole lot of spinning. So I have a lot backed up. But like I mentioned before, it was a disappointing year for colors. And colors are what draws me in. I mean, you don't get that sense because 2 of the 3 things I bought at Vermont were natural, but it was because the colors weren't inspiring, but the natural fiber stood out because of the quality of the fiber itself. Next was Rhinebeck. So our whole group got up early and went to Rhinebeck, and it was really warm and a little disappointing that we couldn't wear any of our knits. I still wore mine for a little bit of the day, but then had to take them off because it was way too hot. And Rhinebeck is a little overwhelming, but this is probably my 6th or 7th year going, and I have it sort of down to a system. But this was the first year I broke my own rule, which was not to buy yarn, only to buy fiber, because that's really what I'm there for, is to source stuff for my shop and for spinning. But I broke down and I bought yarn. because this hedgehog fiber yarn, you guys, that I talked about in the other podcast, has gotten me obsessed with speckles. I can't get enough of speckles. And I was thinking about it. Why am I so obsessed with speckles? And first of all, I think they're very on trend right now. They work really well in all the like find your fade and faded works that are out there on Ravelry. But it's also because it's not the type of dyeing that you can replicate with hand spinning. And what I mean by that is that you'd have to do the dyeing after the yarn is already processed, which I don't tend to do. I tend to, if I'm going to do my own dyeing, I do it before I spin it. And if I'm buying it pre-dyed, it's obviously before I spin it. So the speckled effect can only be done at the very, very end. And so that's a process that I didn't really get to do with hand spun. So I got some. Although now that I'm looking at it, I don't know that it's really speckled. Well, kinda. I mean, kinda. So this is from IntoTheWhirled. So there was a barn complex at Rhinebeck that, for whatever reason, seemed to have all the really popular vendors, which I just don't feel is great planning on their part, because it meant that one building was packed. Megan was at the Miss Babs booth, and she got mowed over by people trying to get her skeins of yarn, and the lines were out the door. So one of those vendors that was also sort of mobbed, but I squeezed into there, was IntoTheWhirled. IntoTheWhirled had a sale rack, which is simultaneously the best and the worst thing to do at Rhinebeck. It was nuts. I got there about 10 o'clock. This was a Sunday, so it was their last day. And the whole wall, the shelving was full, pretty much. And I picked up these colors here, which is sort of like a rusted color with like a maroon. It's got some purple, some deep navy, and then like fades of all of that. Isn't that really lovely? Anyways, I got it on the sale rack. So I don't know why, but it was. And this is called Heirloom Ornamental. And it is superwash merino and nylon. Sock yarn, sock weight. I grabbed these two pretty early in the day, and I was going to go back because I saw some other colors that I also kind of liked, and since they were on sale, maybe I'd get, two others. And I go back, and this was about 1 o'clock on our way out, and it was cleaned out. Totally not a single skein of yarn left. It was nuts. So clearly everyone else was excited about the sale as I was. Anyhow, this is the only yarn that I've ever bought at a fiber festival. Do you guys think it's worth it? Is the color's worth it? Because it's all about the color. So I have no idea what this is going to be, but it spoke to me for whatever reason. It's going to be something great. You can feel it. You can feel it. So then I went to a vendor that I've used before, and it's called Puckerbrush Farm from Shelocta, Pennsylvania. And she makes, she, I think it's most likely she, makes the greatest hand-painted merino roving. And it's not so much the merino wool. First of all, it's her dyeing technique. It's hand painted, I'm pretty sure, but instead of in larger strips, which is what a lot of people do, they're in really small pieces. So it doesn't really create the barber pole effect on your spinning that some other hand painted would. It makes for something totally new, is all I can really describe it as. I love this stuff so much that it was one of the few projects that I spun more than 8 ounces of. I think I spun 2 pounds of it, and I kept it for myself, but I still haven't done anything with it. I have 2 pounds of this stuff. I'll show it to you next time. I'm not really sure where it is here, but I'll show it to you next time. But this is another colorway that she came up with. So this is not merino. This is BFL, but I mean, look at that. Just like, there's so much going on here, and I'm just noticing now it looks like it is dyed onto a brown fleece, which makes it really cool and sort of like stripey. I mean, it's just great. And you know what? What I kind of love about it, she clearly uses a ton of vinegar in her dyeing process. Because you guys, this smells like salt and vinegar potato chips, which I'm not like is not a bad thing to me. But yeah, I mean, just like, look at that. I'm so excited to spin it. I'm making a mess though. Oh. So I'm going to try to contain this back in its bag. But yeah, 8 ounces of this. Super excited. And I know it spins like a dream. I love finding new vendors, but at the same time, there's something really great about going to a vendor that you know the quality is going to be beautiful. You know exactly how it's going to spin up. You know what you're getting. You know. So I'm really excited. I've spun from this vendor several times, and I've never been disappointed. So that's Pucker Brush Farm. And I also got this. So if you happen to go to Megan Hookabee Crochet's podcast, she mentioned in her most recent podcast about my yarn that I spun for her called Starry Night, and it has some stellina in it. It's a really beautiful blend, and I think she said she was making a hat out of it. I think I've seen the hat. There's definitely a hat. Anyways, this is from the same vendor that her fiber was sourced from. So this is from Tintagel, maybe that's someone's last name, Tintagel Farm in Glenville, Pennsylvania, from Leslie and Ron. So it's not a last name because their last name is not Tintagel. So Tintagel Farm, that's that. And this is called Halloween. So Rhinebeck was, it was the weekend before Halloween. So this was sort of Halloween inspired. And it is 50% mohair, 50% wool, and then a little bit of stellina, also known as Angelina. And wait until you see this. Can you guys get all the sparkle? I mean, I'm like trying to hold this up to the light. So isn't that cool? So this is mohair. Oh, it's just so nice. It's got bits of, I love this sort of harvest moon orange that they included in it, right? But then it's mostly this sort of bluish, purple, teal. It's sort of, that's a good shot, right? You guys can see the sparkle, I hope. Sparkle's where it's at. I saw a woman today. She was going through the yarn. She really liked a color. And then she said these words: I wish it didn't have sparkles. Who says that? Whoever sees yarn, or anything for that matter, and is like, oh geez, I wish that didn't have sparkles. This woman apparently. I wish everything had more sparkles. Everything, every yarn should have sparkles in it, in my opinion. So, that was Halloween by Tintagel Farm. And the last thing I got was a little bit of, not, I won't say a leap of faith, shot in the dark, I guess is a better way to say it. So this is from something called Yarns Plus from North Carolina. I think it's just a fiber store. I don't believe that it's from any particular farm, which I don't normally do, but there was such a good, I was shopping the sales. So I picked up these colors and I debated over them for a long time. What do you guys think of these colors? I don't know if I'm going to do them together or separate or some sort of mix. I'm not really sure. But there's like this purpley color. It's getting blown out a little bit. It's more of like a lilac. And this wine color. This is like a light sage. And then this almost looks like a natural indigo. So I bought this without really any idea of what I was going to do with it, because these are each 4 ounces. I'm pretty sure 4 ounces each. So like, I'm not going to do a single skein of all this. But then I was slightly concerned about how they all go together. I think they kind of work together. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this fiber. But it's here now. It's mine. I'm thinking of doing, I don't know if there's a name for the technique, but another spinner whose talents are off the charts, Hey Holly Ho Hum, I think is her name. I'll put a link to her Instagram on here. She was talking about a while ago, she sort of rips roving up into little pieces, like little strips, maybe they're about this long, and all different kinds. Sometimes they're like leftovers, I guess, maybe, and she just throws them in a basket, and then she spins them and just grabs them. So I think that's maybe what I'm thinking of doing with this, but I'm not sure. So happy to hear if you have any comments. I don't know, ideas, suggestions. If you hate it, if you thought I wasted my money, I don't know. I'm gonna make it work. Gonna make it work, guys. Yeah. So then we get to today, the New England Sheep and Wool. This is in Springfield, Massachusetts. It is at the Big E. It is indoors. And I was just saying to my husband David that I think it's becoming one of my favorite festivals. And it's for a lot of different reasons. I think they have a lot more variety of vendors. A lot smaller indie dyers are there, which is really fun for me. A ton more color variation, and maybe that's because of the vendor diversity. And And it's indoors, which is nice because it's not weather dependent like the other ones. And it's a really manageable size. We were able to do it in about 2.5 hours. And that was absolutely taking our time. I mean, we skipped over some booths that we weren't particularly interested in, but we weren't rushed in any way. And it certainly wasn't packed in the way that Rhinebeck is, which sort of makes shopping and especially browsing really sort of not fun. So it's becoming one of my favorites. Not to mention it's fairly close to home. It was about an hour and 45 minutes from where we are in Lowell. So pretty doable. Today, my first purchase was one that my fair buddies sort of give me a look like, what are you doing? But it spoke to me. I don't know what to tell you. It spoke to me. It is, and I hope it comes out on this video as gorgeous as it is in my hands right now. These locks. I mean, anyone who spins with locks, you've got to understand, right? I'm not someone who spins with locks, but I'm just saying, somebody out there has got to understand how gorgeous this is, right? Look how long that is. Those locks are huge, huge. And like the crimp and the curl is just, it's just gorgeous. So both of the women that I went with today, not spinners, which is fine, but they're not. So they look at this and they're like, what the hell are you gonna do? It looks like a unicorn's ponytail. So, and to be honest, I'm not really sure how I'm gonna spin this. It'll obviously, because it's not a lot, it will be some sort of accent onto some fiber, some sort of art yarn, but some sort of tail spinning situation. Try something out. Am I crazy? I think this is gorgeous. Am I nuts? I don't think so. So anyhow, this is from, I don't know where her card went, but it's from Wind Song Farm in Burdett, New York. And this is Wensleydale, right? Wensleydale locks in apricot. The next fiber that I bought at New England was from a new vendor that I hadn't even seen before. And it's from Spinning Bunny and sterling roving hand dyed merino, tussa silk, nylon, and silver poly. So like Angelina, Stellina. And this is Lilac Haze. So once again, what did I say about the sparkles? Do you see it, you guys? The beautiful sparkles. So it also has the slightly lighter variation. And I'm going to apply these guys together. Isn't that beautiful? Really, really excited. I don't know if it's because I just bought it today, but this is probably from all the fiber that I got at this festival season. I think this is what I'm the most excited about. And actually, is it pencil roving? No, sorry. I thought it looked like pencil roving. But look at that. Gorgeous. And so the last things I bought were not really fiber, but fiber related. I've been knitting a lot of shawls, as you might have noticed in my previous podcast. So I really wanted some accessories that were going to make them really usable for me. instead of just sort of draping off or having to always tie it like a scarf. So my grandmother mentioned a shawl pin a couple weeks ago when I was visiting her, that she'd like one for some of the shawls that I made her that tend to droop off her shoulder. So I was on the hunt for a shawl pin for her, and then of course found some for me. I bought some of these shawl pins from Willette, who makes fiber art tools and really, really gorgeous stuff. And I will post his information. So I bought a few different shawl pins, not all for me, but some for gifts and then one for me. This is sort of a purple one with its pin. And this one is going to go to my grandmother, who requested it in the first place. It's for specifically a black merino lace shawl that I made her. So I think that'll complement it really nicely. And she's definitely a pink purple kind of girl. This one will be for my mother. I don't know if you can see the sort of iridescent quality on this wood. It's really, really gorgeous. So she picked this one up for herself when I sent her the photo to see which one her mother, my grandmother, would like. And she wanted this one for herself. So this will be a Christmas gift for her. Not a surprise, so if she watches this podcast, that's okay. And then this one I got for myself. And it's a little smaller than the other two, but I really liked it. It's sort of the natural white color. And the very last thing that I got on our way out the door, actually, was something that I have been hoping to be able to find for months now, which are those cardigan chain pins. Like, where would you find those now? And you would find them on your way out of the New England Sheep and Wool Festival. So this is from Long Island Livestock Company. That's their logo there. And it is a sweater pin. I guess sweater chain? I don't know what you'd call these. But how great. I'm really, really excited to be able to use these with all the shawls that I'm making. And now I have an excuse between this and my shawl pin to make a ton more shawls. So yeah, so that was my haul from the New England Sheep and Wool Festival and from all of my fall fiber festivals. I will definitely update you on the spring ones when those come around. Those will be in April and May, but we'll have a bit of a winter hiatus. All the sheepies are sleeping and building up their coats, and that's it for me now. So thanks for joining me again and checking out all the cool stash that I was able to pick up over the last couple of months. And I will be updating you shortly, I'm sure, on all the stuff I'm going to make with it. So make sure to check out Instagram. That is probably the fastest way to figure out what it is that I'm working on. And then I will try to be good about these podcasts and getting these up so that you can see works in progress. And that's it from me. So, bye.